Hello, I'm Michelle, and welcome back to Somewhere in Bookland. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in the month of November. This past month, I feel a lot better about my reading than I have in a while. That is because in November, I've seen an increase in my reading due to the fact that I've made some changes in my life recently that have just made me happier and less stressed in general, which led me wanting to read more and more because I had gotten to a point where I was so stressed and so just like not happy that I would come home from work and not want to read. And yes, I'm happy that I've been reading more lately. I mean, it's December 8th and I've already read 7 books in December. So yes, I think so far it's been a positive change. And in November, I managed to read 7 books for the whole month, and I'm happy with that. I'm happy with 7 books for the month of November. Now, I decided to start off my month with a graphic novel in hopes that it would like kick me into the reading mood, and it seems to have worked. This graphic novel I checked out from the library, and it is Anyas Ghost by Vera Brosgol. This book is about this girl Anya who doesn't really fit in at school, and then one day on the way home she falls into an old well and happens to make a friend down there. Her new friend just happens to be a ghost and decides to help her fit in at school. But things aren't always what they seem. I gave this graphic novel 4 stars. Thought it was really cute in general and not at all what I was expecting. The plot actually went a little darker than what I was anticipating, but I am all here for that. And throughout the story, Anya learns that things aren't always what they're cracked up to be, and all the things she might have thought she wanted, maybe she doesn't really want after all. The next book I read in the month of November was also another library book. I tend to get the ebooks through Outlook just because if not, I'm very bad at forgetting to return library books on time, and so the ebooks just automatically return if I forget to return it after I'm finished reading it. So this next book that I read was The Raging Ones by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This book follows 3 separate people, Franny, Court, and Michael. They all live in this world where from birth people know what their death date is, and there's kind of a hierarchy in that world based off of death dates and like who's gonna live longer and who's gonna die earlier. And the thing is, these death days are never wrong. People actually test them out knowing that they're not gonna die. They basically test these death dates out, and while they can't die, they learn they can still be severely injured. Now, these 3 main characters all come from different backgrounds, and they're all different in basically every way except one. Their death days have all passed, and yet by some miracle, they are still alive. Not wanting to get caught, they will do whatever they can to become part of the newest space mission so they can flee the planet and leave the threat of people finding out about them behind. I gave this book a 5 stars. I really enjoyed the world building of this book, and at the end of the book, there wasn't a lot about the world or the different concepts of the world that I felt like I was confused by. I also didn't know going into this book that there was going to be some LGBT plus rep in this book, but there is a male-male romance in this book, and I am all for that. I was so happy when I found that out because I was expecting more like a love triangle or something, but no, that is not what this book is at all. Now, these 3 main characters, a lot of their past was actually kept secret from not only each other, but from ourselves, the readers, and we got to learn about their past with each other. So we kind of got to know the characters as the characters were getting to know each other, and I really thought that that was kind of cool. Sometimes I like going into the story not knowing everything about the character, and it worked in this case. I also loved how the 3 main characters worked as a trio, and as the book went further and further, we got to see them slowly start trusting each other and working together. And overall, I just really enjoyed this book, and I am so excited that it's a series. Now, the next book I read in the month of November was Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. Now, I had this book on my Kindle already, and I chose to pick it up because I really wanted to read a romance book. I was just feeling in the romance mood, which I feel in the mood for a romance book a lot, actually. But this one in particular, I watched Jess from Peace Love Books, and she highly recommends this book. Like, she mentions it a lot in a lot of her favorite recommendations, and I tend to go to her channel whenever I want romance recommendations. She's one of my go-to romance recommendation channel, and so I'm like, you know, if she's recommending this book so highly, I just felt the need to read it. Now, this book follows this guy Misha and this girl Ryan, who get paired together accidentally in 5th grade as pen pals because of their unisex names. Misha's teacher thinks that Ryan is also a boy, Ryan's teacher thinks that Misha is also a girl, and there you go. It actually kind of reminds me a lot of that Dawson's Creek episode where Joey goes to tour the college and she gets partnered up with, I think it's a Ryan also, the college guy, and they thought that Joey was a boy, they thought that Ryan was a girl, and she gets partnered up with him, and that's what this book, the premise of this book just reminded me of that episode. And I like Dawson's Creek because I love Pacey, and so I was already on board for this when I heard the premise of this book. Now, these two start their relationship off in 5th grade as pen pals, and 7 years later, they're still talking, they're still writing back and forth to each other. They've become really good friends, but they have never met each other, nor have they seen pictures of each other, because they decided they wanted to keep it strictly pen pally. Now, they do end up meeting in the book, and you find out whether or not they're like their letters or not, and they find out whether they're like their letters, and that is what this book is about. Them finally meeting. Now, I gave this book 4 stars. I loved that the heroine in this book isn't someone that you instantly like. It's actually quite the opposite. You kind of hate her to start off, and I enjoyed that. I enjoy it because even though you kind of start off hating her, you get to spend the whole book seeing her grow and seeing her become someone that she's proud of, because she starts off in the book as someone that she's not proud of. Now, Misha is also going through something really personal in this book, and while you don't know for sure what he's going through, you have a pretty good idea of what it is just to some of the things that have been alluded to. And then to put on top of this that he meets Ryan and he is very disappointed in what he sees and how she isn't who he thought she was, he's just really going through a lot. Overall, I really enjoyed this book, and it definitely delivered on that angst I was hoping for when I went into it. Now, the next 2 books were also ebooks that I got from the library. I read 5 library books this month. Woot woot. Woot woot. The first one was Snow in Love, which is a collection of 4 short stories by Melissa De La Cruz, Amy Friedman, Nick Stone, and Casey West. Now, all of the stories in this book follow like the cheesy Christmassy movie type trope, and around this time of year, like, I am a sucker for that. I love a good Hallmark movie. Now, overall, I gave this book a 4 stars, but I will go into each story separately because I did also rate the story separately. The average was actually about 3.75 stars, so I rounded up to 4 stars. Now, the first story in this book is Snow and Mistletoe by Casey West, and this story follows this girl who is kind of forced to take a road trip with a guy from her school after the airport they both happen to be at grounds all the planes due to a storm. But she doesn't really have any other option, and she needs to get home. Now, I'm rating this story a 5 stars because while it was predictable, it just delivered on that cheesy Christmas feeling that I wanted. Plus, it's a Casey West story, and I've never not liked something by Casey West, so I already went into it thinking that I was going to like it. The next story in this book is Working in a Winter Wonderland by Amy Friedman, and it follows this girl who is working in a huge department store around Christmas time. Now, I'm giving this story 3 stars because while it was cute, I felt it would have been a lot better as a longer story, just because I feel like you don't really get to see the relationship develop at all between what's supposed to be the couple of the story. And I really wish I would have seen more development there. It's just the way the story's set up, you're kind of focused on something else for a while, and then it just shifts quickly into the actual main relationship. And like I said, I just feel like we didn't get enough time there to see it develop. The third story in this book was The Magi's Gift by Melissa de la Cruz, and I wasn't the biggest fan of this story. I'm rating it a 2 stars just because I was looking for more like original stories going into this, and this story is the story you hear all the time. It's not exactly the same. They use different gifts, but it's the story, it's the Magi's Gift, and it doesn't really deviate from the original at all. And you just see, especially around like Christmas time, you hear so many different versions of this. There's the original one. There's like a Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse one where they like do the whole Magi's Gift storyline. And yeah, this wasn't what I wanted, and I'm giving it a 2 stars. Now, the last story in this book was Grounded by Nick Stone, and it follows these 2 girls who are in an airport, and they're talking both via text and face-to-face, and it was just really good. I liked it. It discusses both race and sexuality and other things, and I really enjoyed this story, and I gave it a 5 stars. Now, the next library book I read was The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding by Alexander Bracken. Now, this is a middle grade book about this boy Prosper who turns 12, and his birthday gift is that he finds out there's a demon living inside of him. Happy birthday, Prosper? As it turns out, his great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather broke a contract with this demon Alistair, and he is back to seek his revenge. And sadly, Prosper's the one he's using as his vessel. Now, I gave this book a 4 stars. Overall, I really enjoyed this book, and I enjoyed getting to know Prosper and seeing his relationship with his cousin Nell develop. I really also enjoyed Nell's town and how this book weaved magic and witches into the story in a way that really fit well with the demons and the little, the little pumpkin guy. There's a pumpkin guy. And in my head, I keep wanting to say hobgoblin, but I don't think he was that. He was just a little pumpkin guy, like a jack-o'-lantern demon. Now, I did find this book to be slow at times, and I wanted to see more of the demon part of the book and less of the Prosper going to school part of the book. But I am hoping to get a lot more of the demon story in book 2, because that's kind of what it seems like it's set up to be, like demon all the way. And I would really enjoy that. Now, this book can really be read at any time of the year, but if you are one of those seasonal readers, then I highly recommend picking up this book for next Halloween. Now, the next book I read is also the only physical book I read this month, and I can't even go into much detail about it because it is The Wicked King by Holly Black. This is the sequel to The Cruel Prince, and it comes out on January 8th. So like I said, I don't want to really go into too much about this book, but all I can really say about it now is I loved this book so much. I thought I loved the first book, but then it just got better, and I gave this book a 5 stars because I had to. I couldn't in good conscience give it anything lower than that. But I'm just so happy to have finally read it. Although, now, it kind of made me sad actually when I read it, because I just want the next book, and it's not coming out until at least 2020. So there's that. Yeah. Now, the last book I read this month was once again a library book, and that is The Cheerleaders by Kara Thomas. Now, this book is about this town, Sunnybrook, where 5 years ago, 5 cheerleaders died right after each other, and since then, the town hasn't had cheerleaders. This book follows Monica, a sister to one of the deceased cheerleaders, and her reaction to the 5-year anniversary that's coming up, and just her reaction to all this different information she's starting to now find out about all of these deaths. Because as it turns out, things may not be what they seem. I gave this book 4 stars. You know, I don't tend to read YA thrillers that much, but this book got me thinking that maybe I should start picking up more YA thrillers, because I enjoyed this book overall. While there were some things about this book that were predictable, there were other aspects of this book that I was not expecting, and they kind of like just jumped out at me out of seemingly nowhere. All I know is I could not put this book down. Now, I knew going into this book that it wasn't going to be a light and fluffy read, as it was a thriller dealing with deaths of cheerleaders, and I was not incorrect. It really does go into some dark and gritty aspects, and you should just definitely know that going into it. Now, there are some parts of the story that I felt dragged a bit and could have just been a little faster, which is why I'm giving this book 4 stars instead of 5. Overall though, I enjoyed this book, and it was the first Kara Thomas book that I have read, and so I am definitely looking forward to reading more from her in the future. So those are the 7 books I read in the month of November, and like I said at the beginning, I was really happy with my reading month this month, and I have a feeling I'm going to be a lot happier even still with my reading in December. But that is all I have for you today. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up. If you want to see more of this face in your feed, click subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Also, I cut my hair today, and it's so like short and bouncy, and I just keep... Bye. I drew it on accident. Yeah, books. Yeah, books. Books, 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 books. Oh, it's like a headache. Whew. Brain rush.